One of the things that we've talked about is the difference between relaxation and mindfulness. And we've also talked about the difference between concentration and mindfulness. And so I want to remind you of these conversations that we've had because they are elusive, but they are important to understand, both in terms of being a student of mindfulness and one who practices it, as well as one who's writing about it. So please do your own independent research and make sure that you have a certain degree of clarity as to where relaxation practices might be different than mindfulness practices, where concentration practices might be different from mindfulness practices, and mindfulness practices have a concentration element, and mindfulness practices have a relaxation element, but it's important to understand where they are conceptually distinct, primarily so that you don't confuse them, in what you write, so that you don't confuse them in terms of how you draw upon the practice, in terms of expectations and other related matters that pertain to our practicing of this thing called mindfulness. So this is something that we can certainly talk about. You can raise it in class, and you can raise it when we meet one-on-one or in small groups. But it is something that I think you'll want to be attentive to. And as you're reading about mindfulness, you'll see where concentration is talked about, you'll see where relaxation is talked about, and I want you to be especially attuned to noticing how that term is used. Also know that many people confuse them. A lot of people would say, well, isn't mindfulness and concentration the same thing? And while they have a lot of overlap, they are different in other ways, and that's important for you to understand, especially if you're going to write about it in ways that are clear and instructive and come from a certain degree of developing expertise.